I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christine Barr, and today we'll be talking about CBS and their crazy interview, Margaret Brennan, with Marco Rubio, talking about JD Vance, and saying that like free speech caused the Holocaust. And like we'll watch that clip, and we'll watch a segment on CBS. 60 Minutes talking about Germany and their crackdown of free speech laws. And JD Vance is so right to criticize, our allies in the West for their lack of free speech. And all this crazy stuff was coming out, and I guess we need some finger wagging at our journalists and stuff. But my title is probably not too friendly toward the social media platforms and alerting people that I'm alive today, since it has the word Holocaust in it. But we're going to go ahead, and I did what I did. I named it what I named it. So we're going to go ahead and persist and talk about these subjects. And also, I want to talk about Elon Musk and this baby drama mama with Ashley St. Clair that popped up over the weekend. I'm going to try not to make this episode entirely too long and not go over, but I don't even know where to begin. There's just so much drama, so much tea, so many things that have like happened this weekend. Like I was like constantly scrolling on Twitter, seeing different commentary and all kinds of different stuff, but it's just wild. There's other things I could definitely touch on, but there's plenty to say in what I got to say today. Anyway, before we jump in everything, I'd encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website for articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost to stream, run my site, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can also do super chats if you're watching on Facebook, or you guys can send stars if watching on Facebook. You guys can also go to the store and check out different merch that's available on the site. That does also support. And I encourage you guys to also check out my different books that I have. I have 18 that are published all together. These are, to my fiction books, historical fiction fantasies that take place during the American Civil War. I think American Civil War meets X-Men. So really cool stuff you guys can check out. And I have nonfiction books like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And also, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That is available as well. I don't have time to talk about the continuing kind of crash out from Kristen Hawkins, who is the head of Students for Life, but the sort of comments that she's making toward abolitionists are so out of pocket, and I'll have to just continue addressing that later, but it hasn't let up from the topic that we brushed up on last week. So I'll have to write something or maybe address it tomorrow or make a separate video about it, but it's continuing, and it's really disappointing to see. But anyway, I recommend you guys check out my other content and support in that kind of way if you can. Otherwise, watching, commenting, all those things help out the stream, help out the website. So I thank you to all of you who watch live, to all of you who watch back later, and you leave your comments and you tell the people that they should watch and you share my content. I do very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys for sure. I do want to remind you guys that this week I will be going to Washington, D.C. So I'll be leaving on Wednesday. So I will not be streaming on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we will just have these 2 days together. A lot of people aren't streaming today because it's President's Day. And so, people took the day off or whatever, because I was definitely interested in like watching some other kind of content to see what they were saying about all the stuff that was kind of buzzing this weekend, or the Margaret Brennan stuff that we're going to touch on. So people take the day off, but we are still here together. So we get to, I guess, share each other's tea. So anyway, hope you guys had a really good weekend. Had a good weekend. My nephew had a birthday party. So that's what we did on Saturday. He's 3 years old. He turned 3. And he's very, very particular about his foods. Very particular. And he likes Spider-Man, he likes Sonic. So, some of my siblings got him like Spider-Man stuff, got him, like different clothes of Spider-Man or different stuff with Sonic on it. He really loved it. He was wearing like, Marvel t-shirt and Spider-Man shoes when he came to the restaurant. And then he got a nice Spider-Man hoodie thing. I think my sister Katrina got him yesterday at church. And so they're like, what are you getting him? I'm like, I think we're gonna get some French fries. And they're like, that's really funny. So when everybody gave us gifts, I'm just like, there's one more. And I pulled out a Meyer bag, and just like, they're just bags of frozen French fries. And he's like, French fries. Because that's like one of the only things that he eat. He's so particular. And he even won't eat a lot of meat and stuff. Like, I did get him to eat some chicken fries, but that took him a while to warm up to. And then his brother was mad. He's like, he wasn't supposed to like them because he wanted to eat like all of them himself. But yeah, it was funny. I also got him like a baby shark toy, but they already had the same toy, so I got to return it. So anyway, we had a nice weekend. I hope you guys had a nice weekend as well. Church and everything was good. So I should have a very eventful week. I can't wait to go to the White House and tell you guys about it. But you guys will have to, of course, wait. I guess until I tweet about it or write about it on different posts on Facebook and YouTube, but mostly next Monday. But it should be a fun week. Just pray for our safety and all that stuff as we travel. So I'm excited to tackle all this stuff and talk about this stuff. At the same time, all of this stuff is so insane that I kind of don't even know where to begin. Another interesting thing that happened was Michael Knowles went on the Jubilees Surrounded, and it was like one conservative versus 25 LGBT, and it was the most one-sided video that I had seen them do, to be frank. he just creamed everybody, and I might show you guys a clip of that, but we may talk more about it tomorrow. But I'll wait until the end to see if we have any time. But it was just wild. I did watch the whole thing. And the cope at the end with the panelists, like, oh, he's an idiot. I'm like, he made you guys look so stupid. Just absolutely trashed them all. So it was just interesting. If you guys want to watch that, I certainly did watch the whole thing. So he just demolished them. So I want to start off this segment talking about what we touched on last week. So I'm going to go ahead and play some of this speech that JD Vance gave. Now, we already watched this portion of it together. I'm just going to play like the very beginning of it, so you just kind of know what's going on. So he did a speech criticizing Europe and how they're not so friendly when it comes to free speech, and they didn't really like it too much. But he called out a lot of folks. He called out Sweden, and he called out Germany as well. So we are going to talk about Germany and their crackdown on free speech, and CBS and reporters and journalists, their commentary about this speech and how I guess they didn't like it too much when he was just saying some facts, laying out some facts. And, Trump isn't always right, and JD Vance isn't always right or whatever, but it's kind of a joke, like, oh, Trump was right, because they'll say something, the media or their critics will freak out, and then in a little bit of time, it'll be like, oh, they were totally right about that thing. When it comes to JD Vance, He was just like instantly, he was already right because he's just laying out facts. But he became so evident this weekend that what he said was just the facts, So let me go ahead and play some of this speech for you guys.
I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Quran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder.
Yeah, so just a little bit of stuff going on. Hey, you guys don't like free speech. You guys are arresting people online for saying stuff you don't like. All kinds of madness going on in the world, in the West, and we're supposed to have shared values. And Germany will say, we have free speech. There's just things you can't say or you're going to be arrested. Like, I mean, there's certain things that you can't say in the US or you might be arrested. Like if you're, I don't know, actual incitement, but it has to be like real, like incitement and stuff like that. Or you can be sued if you say something that's, slanderous, there's, there are penalties for how you weaponize your speech, but Germany, it's like illegal to insult people. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking. We'll watch some of that 60 Minutes segment. We'll get to that. But JD Vance, he called these people out and they're mad. They can't take it. They're upset about it. So we're going to watch this segment from CBS that people are saying Brennan needs to be kind of let go because this is just beyond stupid, just some of her commentary. Now, Margaret Brennan had JD Vance on maybe about a week ago, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, and he's like, frankly, Margaret, I don't really care. They were talking about the illegal immigration, and now JD Vance, there's a meme of him like holding his hand up saying, frankly, Margaret, I don't care. I don't really care. So people are like, who's going to go on next to totally own her? The way that they twist themselves, it's alarming. It's really, really alarming. So let's watch some of this. I'm playing this from the Face the Nation YouTube page, and I don't know how strict they'll be about their copyright. Playing it, sometimes when you play things and they're really, really particular about their copyright, the live may get paused. I'm not stopping the streaming. If it gets paused, it'll come back after I stop playing it. So I just want to give an advance warning. I think that's only really happened when we've watched stuff from The View. I think that's the only time that's really happened, it hasn't happened in a long time, but I just want to give a heads up if there's some kind of disruption while we watch some of this newscast. And I wanted to watch it from this because there's only like one snippet that's really going around Twitter. So that's why I'm playing it from YouTube.
What did all of this accomplish other than irritating our allies?
Well, why would our allies or anybody be irritated by free speech and by someone giving their opinion? We are, after all, democracies. The Munich Security Conference is largely a conference of democracies in which one of the things that we cherish and value is the ability to speak freely and provide your opinions. And so I think if anyone's angry about his word, they don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point. I thought it was actually a pretty historic speech, whether you agree with him or not. I think the valid points he's making to Europe is we are concerned that the true values that we share, the values that bind us together with Europe, are things like free speech and democracy and our shared history in winning 2 world wars and defeating Soviet communism and the like. These are the values that we shared in common. And in that Cold War, we fought against things like censorship and oppression and so forth. And when you see backsliding and you raise that, that's a very valid concern. We can't tell them how to run their countries. He simply expressed in a speech his view of it, which a lot of people frankly share. And I thought he said a lot of things in that speech that needed to be said. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would be upset about it. People are allowed, you don't have to agree with someone's speech. I happen to agree with a lot of what he said, but you don't have to agree with someone's speech to at least appreciate the fact they have a right to say it, and that you should listen to it and see whether those criticisms are valid. I assure you, the United States has come under withering criticism on many occasions from many leaders in Europe, and we don't go around throwing temper tantrums about it.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about.
Okay, so Marco Rubio is about to like own her, make her look stupid. I think I don't think anyone needs to make her look stupid for what she said, but they do this thing. It's like, and you know that like I don't know, they'll say something and they'll try to act like it is known. Like wouldn't that happen like Game of Thrones or something? There was like the girls would just say something like the Dothraki's like, it is known. Like everybody just knows this. Why don't you know this? It's just a thing you're supposed to just accept. And he's like, no, I disagree. That's not true. You're full of crap. Free speech caused the genocide. It was free speech that did it. Are you sure that it was free speech that did it? Are you sure? So anyway, I'll let him speak, and then I'll read something from the Holocaust encyclopedia. Okay?
The right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history. I also think it's wrong. Again, I go back to the point of his speech. Okay, the point of his speech was basically that there is an erosion in free speech and intolerance for opposing points of view within Europe. And that's of concern because that is eroding. That's not an erosion of your military capabilities. That's not an erosion of your economic standing. That's an erosion of the actual values that bind us together in this transatlantic union that everybody talks about. And I think allies and friends and partners that have worked together now for 80 years should be able to speak frankly to one another in open forums without being offended, insulted, or upset. And I spoke to foreign ministers from multiple countries throughout Europe. Many of them probably didn't like the speech or didn't agree with it, but they were continuing to engage with us on all sorts of issues that unite us. So again, at the end of the day, I think that people give that is a forum in which you're supposed to be inviting people to give speeches, not basically a chorus where everyone is saying the exact same thing. That's not always going to be the case when it's a collection of democracies where leaders have the right and the privilege to speak their minds in forums such as these.
Mr. Secretary, I'm told that we are out of time.
I bet you are.
To get through with you. We appreciate you making time today.
I bet you are out of time. I bet you are. I mean, their segment's like 14 minutes, so maybe they are out of time, but they could have made time to keep schooling you, lady. Like, I'm glad they gave him enough time to answer his question fully or give his full response. To say something like that, when you just want to crawl in a hole and die from embarrassment. If you were Margaret here, what? It's just okay. Anyway, Nazi propaganda and censorship from the Holocaust Encyclopedia. The Nazis used propaganda to win the support of millions of Germans. Censorship helped suppress ideas that the Nazis saw as threatening. The Nazis wanted Germans to support the Nazi dictatorship and believe in Nazi ideas. To accomplish this goal, they tried to control forms of communication through censorship and propaganda. This includes control of newspapers, magazines, books, art, theater, music, movies, and radio. How did the Nazis use censorship? When the Nazis came to power in 1933, the German Constitution guaranteed freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Through decrees and laws, the Nazis abolished these civil rights and destroyed German democracy. Starting in 1934, it was illegal to criticize the Nazi government. Even telling a joke about Hitler was considered treachery. People in Nazi Germany could not say or write whatever they wanted. Keep that in mind, guys. Examples of censorship under the Nazis included closing down or taking over anti-Nazi newspapers, controlling what news appeared in newspapers, on the radio, and in newsreels, banning and burning books that the Nazis categorized as un-German, controlling what soldiers wrote home during World War II. How did the Nazis use propaganda? The Nazis used propaganda to promote their ideas and beliefs. Beginning in March 1933, the regime tried to centralize its propaganda efforts in a new ministry led by Joseph. This ministry was called the Reich Ministry of Enlightenment and Propaganda. The Nazis used a variety of propaganda tools to spread Nazi ideas. Examples of the propaganda under the Nazis included glorifying Adolf Hitler by using his image on postcards, posters, and the press, spreading negative images and ideas about Jews in magazines, films, cartoons, and other media, making radios more affordable so that more Germans could listen to the Nazi ideas and news, broadcasting Nazi speeches on radio and public loudspeakers, organizing large celebratory Nazi party rallies, creating groups like the Hitler Youth and League and German Girls, and fostered Nazi ideas. How did propaganda and censorship work together? Textbooks are a good example of how propaganda and censorship work together. In the Nazi regime, the Nazis used both propaganda and censorship to control what the students read in school. Nazi censors removed some textbooks from classrooms. New textbooks taught students to obey the Nazi party, love Hitler, and hate Jews. Then it goes into different key dates. And May 10th, 1933, Nazi book burnings. I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my mind, the book burnings. When she's like, free speech led to the Holocaust. I'm like, free speech put people in the concentration camps and gas chambers? That was free speech that did that? That wasn't just like people deciding to do things out of hate. It was free speech that did that? Are you sure? Are you sure the free speech is what burned books and made neighbors and everybody telling each other was free speech that did that? Are you sure? Are you sure it was free speech? It's just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. During the spring of 1933, Nazi university students, organizations, professors, and librarians put together a long list of books they think are un-German. The list include books written by Jewish authors. They also include books by non-Jewish authors whose ideas conflict with Nazi ideas. On the night of May 10, 1933, Nazis hold book burnings. They march by torchlight and nighttime parades, singing chants, and throw books into huge bonfires. On that night, more than 25,000 books were burned. It also mentions the premiere of a propaganda film, Triumph of the Will, and then September 1939, banning Germans from listening to foreign radio, and then they have other links and stuff. So yeah, I don't think Margaret was correct there. RC said Margaret doesn't care about embarrassing herself. I don't know. That's a really bad one. I don't maybe she didn't know. Maybe that's what she believed. Maybe that's just what she thought. I just wonder what kind of conversations might have been had after that segment with bosses and other folks. I was floored. I think I probably saw that clip while I think it was Sunday after church. I think I was in the sanctuary, and I pulled it up and I looked at it, and then I remember showing it to my sister Tina, and the faces that she made upon viewing were pretty funny. Because it's just really unbelievable that a journalist would say something like that. So I saw some people suggesting that CBS might be better off like letting her go. Not because what she said was so was so offensive or whatever, but it was alarmingly just stupid. Just alarmingly. So and the purpose of it to try to tie JD Vance and his speech to some far right authoritarian nonsense as if they're always trying to draw the conspiracy string back to Nazi. When free speech is a bad thing, guys. You know, free speech can lead to genocide. So much of the commentary surrounding Donald Trump, like, oh my gosh, they want to limit the size and scope of government. It must be because they're authoritarians. That's not how it usually works, guys. That's not how it usually works. It's just really not. It's just really not. So anyway, JD Vance said his awesome speech. People on the left are mad. Journalists are mad. The Europeans are mad. Who cares if they're mad? Okay, but they're upset. They're offended that he bothered to shake their finger at them. Which, by the way, the Europeans had stuff to say about Trump and other folks that they don't like either. It's not like they're quiet all the time and they're just like, oh, that we can't say nothing bad about our allies. Like, screw that. That's not even, people say what they gotta say, what's on their mind, and we disagree about stuff. Okay, we disagree about stuff, but this is a big deal. This is supposed to be a common value that we share, but obviously, we don't. We don't. So JD Vance, I think it was great that he pointed out people being arrested over thought crimes and burning the Quran and posting memes. So 60 Minutes decided to do a segment. It's about 12 minutes long. You guys can watch the entire thing on YouTube. I watched the entire thing today. About Germany and them going after people for memes and other things like that. In Germany, you can't post. It's illegal to say things that are insulting to people. It posts them online because they're trying to, I don't know, restore civil discourse. And I guess you restore civil discourse by getting rid of memes and finding people who post them and raiding their house or going to knocking on their door at 6 a.m. and letting them know it's a crime. That's absurd. I'm reminded of the interview that Peterson had with that journalist from the UK, and they were talking about like why does your right to say whatever you want to say trump my right to not be offended? And I'm just like, ma'am, since when do you have a right to not be offended? When were you created with such a thing? Is that a natural right? It's not a positive right. Where did this right to not be offended come from? It doesn't exist. That's stupid, for one thing. But Jordan Peterson responded, because in order to think, you have to risk being offensive. And then she didn't really have anything to say. She's like, oh, well, you kind of got, she started thinking. He's like, aha, gotcha. And she's like, yeah, you have got me. So that's where that's from. If you've ever seen that, gotcha. But yeah, you have to, in order to speak and have civil conversations, you have to risk being offensive. And you might have to say something that's offensive to someone. I briefly mentioned that Michael Knowles did a video on Jubilee, the surrounded, when it's like 1 versus 25. And so it was 1 conservative versus 25 LGBT. And I've watched a couple of surroundeds. I don't know if I watched the whole one with Charlie Kirk. I watched the whole one with Ben. I've seen quite a few of them, but the format's not like amazing or whatever, but people keep watching them. I watched the whole one with Lila Rose on abortion, but I watched quite a bit of the one with Everybody versus Destiny, and seen quite a few clips of the Alex O'Connor one. But this is the most like one-sided debate I've seen. Like, they did not send their best on the LGBT side. Now, some of them were actually like Republicans or conservatives, or I don't know if they're conservatives. They are Republican, and some of them like were subscribers or watched Michael Knowles or wherever or whatever, and one of them got really angry because they said, you say all this stuff and then I have to try to convince people to be Republican while you're saying things like we should ban pride parades and there's no such thing as same-sex marriage and so on. But if you watch the whole thing, Michael Knowles just like he just dominated the conversation. Like there's this one kid named Mason. He's been on a couple of them. And at the end, he tried to say, "Oh, Michael Knowles is a clown. I've talked to Ben. I've talked to Charlie Clerk, and he was just a clown, and he just says things to be inflammatory." Now, this kid Mason, he wouldn't even call Michael most of the time. He kept calling him Mindy, and kept saying, "Well, you can't prove who you are because I guess trying to press back and be antagonistic about the fact that if a man says he's a woman, you don't just believe him. So if he says he's Michael, why should we just believe him? I suppose that's the point he was trying to make." And so I'm like, talking about trying to trigger people, saying stuff to trigger people. Clearly, he was trying to do stuff to trigger people. And at one point, he lied about being a woman and having XY chromosomes to get like a reaction out of Michael or whatever. So I'm like, this is major projection. But it's major projection, really, because Mason tried this was during a segment where Michael said that there's no such thing as same-sex marriage. And so he said, for all of human history, we've understood marriage to be something between like a man and a woman, and it's ordered toward procreation and raising and rearing stuff of children. And that's in principle. And he says in principle because of course, obviously, there are some infertile couples who can't breed and raise and rear children of their own, genetics and stuff. And but in principle, a man and a woman are the ones who can make a child, right? So Mason tried to say, well, there's other cultures that viewed marriage and gender differently than like Western cultures. And he said like the Mayans. And so Michael's like, okay, let's talk about the Mayans. And then the kid didn't know anything about the Mayans. He's like, well, is this segment supposed to be specifically about the Mayans? And he's like, you're the one who brought up the Mayans. I want to know what you know about the Mayans. And and he tried to like dismiss Michael as if he was just obsessing about the Mayans. And Michael's point was, you people bring up these other cultures, but you don't have anything to add, anything to say about them. You just throw it out there as if it's a fact, but you don't have any facts to back up that humans have viewed marriage in a different kind of lens until recently. So anyway, maybe there's some facts out there or whatever that can debunk Michael, but they certainly did not present them and bring them to the conversation. But I brought up this video because there are people very upset with the things that Michael had to say, and they were doing a lot of character assassinations. He'd say things like, I want to eradicate transgender ideology, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you want to get rid of all the trans people? And he's like, no, it's just like, if I said I wanted to get rid of poverty, that doesn't mean I want to destroy the poor. Like I want to kill poor people. That's not what that means. And they're like, well, it's no different from saying ideology versus a person. He's like, no, there's a big difference. And then the person who was a Republican, he's like, you're just saying things to be inflammatory. And he's like, no, I'm using precise language. I'm being very careful with my words. Words matter. Actually, he wrote a book about the power of words and speech or whatever. I haven't read his book on it, but he made a bestseller with a book that had no words. It was like Reasons to Vote for Democrats. It was like a gag book. And then he actually wrote a book about words and speech and meaning and stuff. So he uses very precise language. I think he's a very skilled conversationalist. Perhaps one of my favorite out of like, I don't know. There's between Matt, Michael, and Ben, they all have their highs for sure. But Michael is very gifted, I think. But he wasn't saying things to be inflammatory. Other people were saying things to be inflammatory and disingenuous, but I didn't think Michael was doing that. But you have to get to the heart of the matter, you have to risk offending people, and he offended at basically everyone there. But at some point in time, people have to discuss the truth. People have to discuss the truth. I think the stuff that you saying about the trans stuff was probably the least controversial stuff, but they were still upset, very, very upset about those things as well. If I say men can't be women and women can't be men, that's offensive to someone, even though it's true. So we have to go by some other metric other than the fact that you're upset and you're offended. We just have to. You don't have a right to that. But let's at least watch this clip from 60 Minutes. I encourage you guys to go. You can go watch the whole thing on YouTube. I did today, and it's just really amazing that they will scour the internet for memes and hateful content, and then they will go arrest people. Like there's a library with just like folders of people's internet content. They will seek out and they will go after them. So I'll play you this, I think maybe this one clip, but I do encourage you guys to go watch the whole thing yourself. It's just really fascinating how far these people have I think fallen.
It's illegal to display Nazi symbolism, a swastika, or deny the Holocaust. That's clear. Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher.
Yeah.
If you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
That sticks around forever.
yeah.
The prosecutors explain German law also prohibits the spread of malicious gossip, violent threats, and fake quotes.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders. But in most cases, a judge levies a stiff fine and sometimes keeps their devices.
How do people react when you take their phones from them?
They are shocked. It's a kind of punishment if you lose your smartphone. It's even worse than the fine you have to pay.
Because your whole life
Yes.
is typically on your phone now.
we confiscate their cell phones. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm saying that doesn't make me wanted in Germany, but that's crazy. That is insane. That is insane. And they have the nerve to be angry at JD Vance for talking the truth about them and putting their business out there, putting them on blast. They have some nerve being mad at JD Vance being right. You can't say stuff that's insulting to people. You'll confiscate their stuff, fine them. You can't say, guys. Okay, Margaret. Just FYI, free speech did not cause the Holocaust, but Nazis certainly did use censorship to, they said even telling a joke about Hitler was considered treachery. And you can't just write whatever you want. You have to allow people to say things, even things that you don't like. I'm not saying like obscenity laws and other kind of stuff are bad, but there are different restrictions that we have, right? But you can't insult someone. This idea that we're going to protect civility by monitoring what folks say. And if you continue watching it, they'll say like, well, hate speech, all this stuff online, it's made people afraid to talk about their views and what they really feel, and people don't want to engage in politics. You think censoring everyone to this degree is going to make more people want to engage in how they really feel? Are you insane? Do you know how many people like privately message me and reach out to me like when I talk about the transgender stuff? And people are more open to talk about it now, especially after Trump won, or like maybe even leading up to it. But like when I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago, really talking about this stuff, like, because I was talking about trans stuff like a lot, and a lot of my stuff went viral, talking about Dylan Mulvaney and other stuff like that. That's how a lot of people found my channel. But people would say, I can't say these things that you say because I will lose my job. Like there was like high stakes for people. There's someone who reached out to me is a friend of mine, and because of her job, she's very vocal about how she feels about things, but she said she could lose her ability to do what she does if she doesn't adhere to the gender ideology nonsense. It's totally bonkers. So to think that heavily censoring people is going to allow them to speak their mind, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And what you'll do is you'll probably radicalize more people to the extreme that you don't want them to go, or and maybe both. You will have a political outcome that you'll be totally surprised. Like people were surprised in 2016 when Donald Trump won. Well, they were saying that there's the shy Trump voter that won't tell people that they're voting for. Because if you say, oh, I'm voting for Donald Trump, like, oh, you're a racist, you're this, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, nah, I just don't like Hillary Clinton. There's all kinds of reasons why people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton and voted for Donald Trump. You know, I knew communists who voted for Donald Trump because they just wanted a disruption to the system. Okay. All kinds of reasons why people voted for Donald Trump. But if you voice that, people attacked you like crazy. So people didn't want to say. So a lot of people were very confused in November on election night, 2016. Very confused. People were still very harassed and stuff in 2020. Now, 2024, so many people are so vocal now. I'm seeing more Black conservatives, Republicans popping up online all the time. And they're still like ferociously ignorant Democrats who, saying all these racial things against folks all the time. Those people still exist. We're still a minority. But what I'm saying is people are more vocal than they used to be about this stuff. And it's not taboo so much to be a Republican, to be a conservative, to vote for Trump. It's very much kind of we're on the cool side. The pendulum has definitely shifted. But if you keep suppressing people, they'll surprise you in ways that you're not ready for. So you could encourage good discourse online, but suppressing the speech is not the way to go. On top of that, what happens when you suppress the speech, but you don't do it evenly? That's a really big concern. Like, think about in the US, if Kamala Harris had won, she's been very big on hate speech laws, misinformation. We saw some of that in the Biden administration, whatever, but she's vocal about wanting that stuff when she was like running for office. I mean, for president before. Right? So let's say she had won and America, instead of like tipping in this free speech kind of era that we're in and stuff. Let's say it was like, okay, we're gonna censor, we're gonna crack down on social media companies, and we're gonna push more censorship. Excuse me, sorry, I got it tickled my throat. What Kamala Harris HQ were the ones who were pushing misinformation more than anyone else, So sorry. Oh my gosh. Do you think that they would go after misinformation equally? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Ooh, sorry. I was doing so well. Do you really believe that Kamala Harris, who was pushing misinformation on her platform every time she got up basically to speak, pushing things like the Very Fine People hoax, they were weaponizing misinformation, but then they would criticize Donald Trump and the right for misinformation, and they would say things that were true. They would go out and lie through their teeth all of the time. So do you think a government that says we're going to go ahead and limit hate speech and we're going to limit misinformation and we're going to come after you for these memes and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, do you think that they're going to treat their political enemies the same as they treat their allies when they both, go do wrong as far as the law that they deem? I don't think so. And we know this because they break the rules themselves. They don't honor the truth. Kamala Harris was one of the biggest liars. She's one of the fakest people. All these politicians lie all the time. Trump exaggerates and all this. Like all of them do it. But she was like top tier liar. So they would not be fair with how they decide to crack down. So it is better to err on the side of free speech. It is safer to do that. It just is. So Germany and the other countries, the EU or whatever, that have in their minds that it's good to crack down and do thought crimes and be like, oh, you can't offend people. I just don't believe that they would treat everybody equally. Like what happened? Like how far does this go? Like if I was in Germany and wrote on a website or something on social media that the Prophet Muhammad was a pedophile, what would they do? What would they do? He did marry a 9-year-old. Does that not qualify? Are they coming for me or are they not? Because that's definitely offensive to a lot of people. Mentioning that, what would they do? I think they probably err on the side of gunning for me. So I good luck to the folks who live there. I'm glad I live in the US and I'm glad that the pendulum has swung. Hopefully we'll be able to keep things going longer. Let me play this one clip from the Jubilee Surrounded episode. Michael Knowles, he was talking to a trans person about the sports. And this is one of the fastest, it's not happening, but it is, and it's good that you'll ever see. Like sometimes you'll hear people talk about folks on the left, like that's not happening. And if it is happening, it's good. And mostly I think people start really talking about that with like the CRT stuff. Like, oh, schools aren't teaching critical race theory. And it's good that they're teaching critical race theory. And how dare you want to take it out? But this is a fine example of that, a very fine example of it.
What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's allowing men to be treated for the purposes of the law as women. It's men taking 900 sports trophies from women in recent years.
And they didn't take 900.
They took 900. There's a report just came out from the United Nations, actually. 890 trophies and medals across 600 women who were competitors, across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out like yesterday.
And they deserved them.
It didn't happen and they deserve them. Okay, that is the logic I hear from the pro-trans crowd. Yeah.
Thank you. They do deserve them. What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's not happening. They deserve them. It's just madness. We got somebody from the UK in here who saying, let me put this up here. I'm from the UK. I guarantee that hate speech laws get get sinister in that you soon won't be allowed to criticize violence against you. We learned the hard way. I hope that's not the case, but I'm assuming it's, you know, it may be a bit of the case anyway. Now, Godspeed to you, and I'm very glad that Kamala Harris did not win. That would have been a very bad turning point for the U.S. I mean, I guess a continued path. I guess wouldn't need to turn. We'd just we'd continue like launching off of the cliff. When Elon was all excited at the parade, like the rally parade thing, and he was like coming off the stage, jumping around, fist pumping, and doing all this stuff, and he threw his heart out, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, he's doing the Nazi salute," whatever. And he said, "I my heart goes out to you," but he was like throwing his arms up and doing all kinds of different gestures, beating the podium. He was so excited, like he was telling people that we just saved civilization. Like that's what he believed, and that's what he was pushing. And I don't know. I don't like to think that it was that dramatic. I don't like to think that. But it is a very good thing that she lost. And I hope that continues being a very good thing that she lost. There's some things that are being talked about right now that I'm not too fond of with the Trump administration, that they're but I'll have to table that for another day. But as far as our free speech principles, they're much more protected under Donald Trump. And you saw that Zuckerberg from Facebook, that he wants to protect free speech. He wants to protect and fight for free speech around the world, which, by the way, Facebook was sued by, I guess it was Germany, maybe, because they wanted all of these false quotes and memes that was attributed to a politician to be taken down. And so this politician sued Facebook. They're like, that's not how our algorithm works. We'd have to hire more people. And they're like, well, it's my right. It's my right. You have to do this. And so they lost the suit. And so they're appealing it. So I know that Zuckerberg wants to work with Trump about pushing free speech around the world. But he said on Joe Rogan's show that it was kind of hard to do that before because the U.S. was bad about the free speech stuff too. And so they were trying to censor stuff during COVID, and they would say, you got to take that thing down, even things that were true that the government didn't like. Now, I don't want to make Zuckerberg seem like some kind of hero because he's slow on the uptake, but at least there's this turnaround, and a lot of people are making positive turnarounds. Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk a bit about this Elon thing that happened over the weekend with Ashley St. Clair. So if you're not aware of it, but if you're not on I don't know how much people are talking about on Facebook or on Twitter. I mean, not Twitter, but TikTok. I really wasn't on TikTok much this weekend, so I don't know if people were talking about it on TikTok. I don't know if people were talking about it on Facebook, but it was all over X. It was all over X. So Ashley St. Clair, who is a right-wing influencer, I actually I'm not very familiar with Ashley St. Clair. Let me pop up this so you know what she looks like. This is what she looks like. So she made an announcement that she had a child 5 months ago and that Elon Musk was the father. And that took people by surprise because he's already got a couple children. So I think this makes 13 kids and 4 different baby mamas, I think. So this made some waves because one, she's a right-wing influencer. She's had a lot of tweets in the past about wanting to, that are like traditional, like trad wife con kind of stuff, wanting to be a stay-home mom and be married, and trashing like single mother kind of I mean, she already has a kid herself, but um just that kind of culture though. And so people have been popping up old tweets and different things that she said, um criticizing Kamala Harris for, you know, sleeping with dudes. And so people were just like combing through her stuff. And a lot of people were just like, she had a baby, congratulations. And that's good news. And some people were like, okay, she's not married to Elon. And people are like, well, you got to forgive people if they make a mistake and they make an oopsie baby. And then folks are like, why do you think there's an oopsie baby? Because Elon Musk is big on IVF. And at first I'm like, I don't even know if she was pregnant. Because I know some people who saw her some time ago and she didn't seem like she had recently had a baby. But according to a New York Post article that I did read, she was pregnant, I guess. And that doesn't mean that they didn't make the baby via IVF. And when they say IVF, I don't know if they mean IVF, or they just mean insemination. But from my understanding is most of the kids through like IVF and stuff. Which there's some, you know, issues with that I don't want to jump into today. But it seems like it was purposeful, or we would assume just from a pattern. And so then there was and then there's also like tweets like, you could just find stuff like, there's no sin as cruel as alienating a child from a parent, seeing so much of this everywhere. And Elon, you know, saying, yeah. And it's just like making people scratch their head about like, why do this and not hold up the nuclear family? You know? Someone said Elon giving Nick Cannon a run for his money. Yeah, people brought up Nick Cannon too. Because people say, if you talk trash about Nick Cannon, then why are you out here like acting like this is cool? And a lot of people are like, well, Elon isn't a conservative. That's true. That doesn't mean that you should just keep having baby mamas and people can't say, hey, that's not cool. But Ashley was a right-wing conservative. Now well, actually, I don't know. I don't know how conservative she was, but she kind of said some trad con kind of stuff. I didn't know who Ashley St. Clair was until the Calendar Gate stuff. Do you guys remember Calendar Gate? Calendar Gate. There was another calendar this past year. About 2 years ago, there was a calendar that came out by this like ultra right beer or something. It was like a right-wing beer company, and they're selling calendars. And so Riley Gaines was on the cover of it, and she did like another photo too. And it was like during a time during the end of the year, and it got a lot of play in conservative circles. I don't know if there wasn't a lot of news or whatever, but I did talk about it too. Because and a lot of folks are saying that some of the pictures that people were doing to advance to sell a calendar to maybe entice men to lust after you or something, that's not a very conservative thing to do. And Riley Gaines like did not say a peep about it. Like she took a smart route. I didn't see her tweet about it. I didn't see her any interviews about it. She didn't say anything. And other folks in it said quite a bit. Now Dana Lash was in it. She just wore a t-shirt and had like giant guns. And if you said there's a right-wing calendar, that's probably what I would expect. But other people did things a little more risque. Ashley St. Clair, her photo, she was in a bathtub with the beer behind her in like a black bra and like bath bubbles and stuff. And it was supposed to mock Dylan Mulvaney's shoot when he did a video in the bathtub in his like bra or whatever, but he's a dude, totally flat, and versus Ashley being a woman who is not flat chested. So I didn't like the calendar, but that was kind of my first impression of Ashley St. Clair. Like, I know she's been around for a minute, but I haven't found she hasn't pierced my intellectual circle, I guess. So um that's how I kind of became accustomed. Um uh I mean, so there's another one that I want a husband, 2 kids, and a small farm already. This is, and then I guess people start tweeting at her. This is not an invitation for a marriage request. I'm not sure how to tweet talking about my desire for traditional family life and values makes me a thought or attention seeker, but the internet gets dumber every day. And Milo Yiannopoulos, he why does he have civil rights icon in his bio? Oh my gosh. He was very popular back in 2015, 2016 and got like taken down by the right for very controversial. Well, he always wrote controversial stuff, but there was one that was like grooming, kind of gross, from Milo, controversial, that took him down. But he's been popping back up. But he apparently knew about it about 5-6 months ago, and so he was tweeting a lot of stuff. So he put on his page a tweet from Ashley St. Clair after this news came out about the baby and stuff, of her saying that she needed to get Elon Musk's attention for a marriage proposal. Please, Greg, talking to Greg Price. And I think Greg Price is with the Daily Caller, I think. And so he said he's got a kid with a woman already. Seems unlikely to work out. And she said, well, he actually has 7 kids and goes through women pretty fast. And so that was back in 2020. And so Elon replied to that. And he said, whoa. And then she had replied under him. And she said, Elon, we have been trying to communicate for the past several days. You have not responded. When are you going to reply to us instead of publicly responding to smears from an individual who just posted photos of me in my underwear at 15 years old? And yeah, so she ended up deleting that. And it just on one hand, people are like, well, that's their business. It's like, why they're putting all this kind of out there on the internet. And then another one of Elon's baby mom was put out a family photo, and then he liked it and stuff. So people, I don't know what this dynamic is, but it's weird. It's weird. So I brought all this up to kind of talk about the rights response to it, because again, I didn't really follow Ashley St. Clair too much myself. And then there was another account of someone who was like a trad wife influencer who got outed as not even being a real person. It was like Hannah Patriarchy. And she deleted her account when she got exposed as being like, she's supposed to be like a wife with a bunch of kids, and I think a young wife with a bunch of kids or something, and she's like a 30-something single woman who's overweight and stuff, just lied about a ton of stuff. So now her account is gone, and she would criticize, Ali Stuckey for being too feminist and stuff. So her stuff's gone. So there's folks that have been cosplaying trad wife positions for a while, and they don't walk the walk, talk the talk, and it just ultimately, I don't know, makes folks look bad. But there was different commentary with people saying, congrats and stuff. And CJ Pearson, for example, he said, I see far too many self-righteous and tired individuals pouncing on Ashley St. Clair for having a child out of wedlock instead of commending her for choosing life. Is the conservative position not that every life is a blessing regardless of how it's conceived? And Milo said, no, that is not the conservative position. And CJ said, I'd be more amenable to the criticism if she had a child out of wedlock with a brokey, as is too often the case, but choosing life in a culture that treats children as an inconvenience is worthy of commendation. And Milo said, this is so black. And then CJ said, it's February. So he said, I'll allow it. That's a funny exchange, a funny racial joke exchange. But people did take issue with CJ here in his commentary. Now, I did too. Now, Milo is right. That is not the conservative position. The conservative position, of course, babies are a blessing. They're made in the image of God. And they deserve dignity, respect, and we want to, make sure that moms and dads can support and love their children. But the conservative position in regards to life is that there shouldn't be a choice. There shouldn't be a choice. Now, it's just the reality that right now you can choose whether you want to abort or not abort. Okay. And we want people to make the right choice. But the blanket conservative position is you should not, that's a life, obviously. You should not get a choice in whether you're going to take that life. That's the actual conservative position. But you have to back up to really get the conservative position. The conservative position is that parents have moral obligations to their children. They have moral obligations to their children. And those obligations really start prior to their procreation. I like to say that my parents practiced proactive love because before I was a twinkle in their eye, they both had enough good sense to not engage in sexual activity with people who weren't their spouses. They were both virgins when they got married. And I know that's not everybody's story. I know that's not going to be everybody's story, but at least men and women can make sensible decisions about who they sleep with and be safe and all that stuff. I would prefer if people did the way my parents did. And I think society would be better. I know society would be better for it. I know that's not going to be everybody's story, but people should make good decisions about who they choose to do the naked tango with, because you can make babies that way. And once those babies come into play, you have more obligations to your children. And the best sort of way, the most ideal situation to create a good environment that they can flourish in is if the people together are in a committed relationship, which we would like to say marriage. And ideally, it would be a healthy marriage and it would be a permanent situation. And you would raise that family together. It's a nuclear family. The conservative position is that the nuclear family is good. That is the conservative position. Now, I know we don't always hit the mark on the ideal. I know not everybody marries the right spouse, or people change and they can do terrible things and maybe they can be abusive and, things can go downhill and we could go down the worst rabbit hole, whatever. But the ideal situation is that you make families and those family structures. You make a family, you make a family, you make a family, you make a family, you make a society, you make a community, it goes on from there. You build a nation and stuff, and you have stable environments, and good families lead to good societies and good community and stuff. That's like the conservative position. Nuclear family, good. That's what it is. Not, the girl who is not married to the guy who has 12 other kids didn't abort her baby. Her billionaire baby. Like, come on. That's not the position. So people started really coming after CJ because of other comments that CJ had made in the past. So let me just show it to you. So Delano Squires posted this tweet from CJ in the past that said the Black community needs to stop glorifying baby mama culture. Insemination alone is not an accomplishment. So it seems to contradict the stuff that he is saying now. He said, "Hey, CJ Pearson, the criticism has nothing to do with the value of the child's life. It has to do with the behavior of the adults in the situation. You have spoken in the past about the pitfalls of glorifying baby mama culture. What changed?" And he said, let me see if I can find his response tweet, 'cause I know I got it somewhere. Or I might have to summarize it. He thinks, okay, here we go. I got it. He said, "At no point have I glorified baby mama culture. Okay. However, pretending that what happens far too often in the Black community, getting knocked up by brokies and bringing into the world children that have to be raised on the taxpayer dime, is similar to procreating with a billionaire, is intellectually dishonest." Now, this take is still wild to me. And he replies, "This only makes sense if you think a man's only contribution to the home is financial provision. I don't. Children benefit from the affection, protection, direction, and correction of a father. A man splitting time between 10 plus kids in several homes can't provide that consistency." That's what it is. Saying it's different because Elon is rich. And I don't know if I tried to see if he had any Nick Cannon content. I didn't see any Nick Cannon content from CJ. But but thinking that it's just okay because Elon is rich, therefore he can populate his seed wherever he wants and it'll be okay because he can just throw money at the women and it's whatever. He could pop in and, I don't know what all his arrangements are with these kids. Though he didn't want his name on the birth certificate, according to Ashley. That's a little interesting. They said it was for safety reasons, but I'm like, that's a amateur mistake, Ashley. Amateur mistake. You want to make sure the name is on the birth certificate. You want to make sure it's on there. It's more important that you have a good dad that's around and present than them having all the money in the world. That's more important. Like, I can think of moments in my life that seem maybe so small that were so transformative in my life. Like the one that I go to, the one that I've mentioned this before. But I always like to do my schoolwork, to do good in school and get good grades or whatever. I liked for my parents to go to teacher conference because my teachers had good things to say about me. And so when I was in elementary, my dad came to my parent teacher conference and my teachers just, they bragged on me. And so I liked seeing the gleam in his eye, the pride in his eye. My dad, he's an emotional guy. He'll cry very easily. And, just to see him just kind of swell with pride as they're saying good things about me. And in my mind, I thought to myself as he's viewing me and I see this pride on my father's face with my accomplishments, I'm like, I want to continuously make him feel like that. And so that continued me down a path of really wanting to achieve excellence in school. And I did it for more than just him. I did it for me. And at the end, I cared about him more than I think he did, And like one time I was about to, get a B or something. And he's like, it's okay. I'm just like, how dare you? But it was very just an impactful and transformative moment in my life. And we didn't talk about it in the car. Like he didn't sit me down and like drill something into my head, but it was just a moment of just recognizing that parental pride in my dad for his child. So parents can have such a positive impact on their kids. They can obviously have a negative impact on their kids, but there's nothing like your parents. There's nothing like your parents. And so being like, oh, it's okay because Elon's rich. It's like, it's different than, the mamas who get knocked up by the brokies it's when people look at different outcomes for like fatherless homes, sometimes people will criticize those outcomes because they'll say, no, if you look at the data, it doesn't mean that they're deadbeat dads who aren't around. They're just not in the home. So I'm like, that actually is worse. Because it's good that they're around or still present or sending money, pops in or whatever. Maybe they go from house to house. But what it says about the outcomes is that even if they're still present, there's still that disruption there from not having that consistent 2-parent rearing that a child really benefits from. So I don't care how good people think Elon's genes is because he's a genius, or how much money that he has. It's not good for the children to have to not either be around their moms or not be around their dad all that time. And I highly admire what he's doing with SpaceX, with with the White House working with Trump. I love that. I mentioned, I'm like, that's what got me excited. The Doge and all that stuff. I dig it. I do. But I love that he, has a son around and stuff, but he devotes a lot of time to his work. Will sleep on the floor of places where he works. And I understand he's a very important man, very busy man. But there's nothing in life, including going to Mars, it's going to be more important than raising and rearing your children. All these accomplishments and things that he does, companies that he builds, money that he makes, those things will pass away. And I guess so will your children. Everybody will pass away. But the best legacies are your loved ones, I think. So I don't think it's cool. And this commentary from the right is very strange. CJ's commentary is very strange to me. It doesn't make it okay just because Elon isn't broke. And I'm curious how many people are like excusing Elon or sticking up for him, don't like the fact that Nick Cannon had a bunch of kids by different women and stuff. It's just a very strange situation. Now now Ashley's like putting stuff online trying to come to an agreement with her baby daddy about the kid. And so there was another they're just putting out press statements about how they're trying to come to an agreement with the child. And I'm like, those agreements are supposed to come together before you make a baby. You should not be trying to play catch up. And I understand people do that all the time because they make oopsie babies and they're not married. But you're 5 months into the child being born. And if this wasn't, I'd be surprised if it was an oopsie baby. I'd be very surprised. I'm not saying it's 100% not. But but if they plan this, and this is still like so crazy, like someone made a post that said, like, it doesn't matter how rich they are, like, you need to make sure that you are marrying somebody and stuff so you don't have to tweet at them over the internet. I'm trying to find the second press statement that they put out. I thought I had marked it, but yeah, they just said that they were trying to work out an agreement. And then she said, the first one said that she wanted her privacy. And then there was an article that came out from the New York Post. So people are like, she wants her privacy, but she did an exclusive interview with the New York Post. Now, allegedly, she came out with this stuff, and it started dropping on Valentine's Day, because there was a tabloid that was going to, people claim it was a Daily Mail that was like looking into her son and was going to post different stuff. So she just decided to get the jump on him. But I I would hope that there's not a continuation of this, because children do need their mom and their dad, and um I don't like that the excuses that are going on with this. And then there's a lot of people, black people on the right, that I've seen commentary from, that are suspicious, because they're like, okay, we hear so much trash talk about black people doing this, and now it's all the excuses in the world for Ashley St. Clair. And you could say it's because he's the richest man in the world, so he gets a pass. But again, back to the point that the other person made, you it's not just money that makes a difference in the child's life. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. I'm glad that I had my two parents. I went to school with a lot of kids who did have money. And money doesn't buy you everything. It doesn't. It doesn't. My sister made a good point. She said bringing poverty into the conversation is adding to the pro-choice argument. It does. It absolutely does. It does, because that value of that child doesn't, people are more than what they make. And the value of the dad is more than what they make. The dad is supposed to be a provider. That is one part of his goal, of his purpose, to make sure that he provides for his family. Yeah, sure. But the value, the time that he puts in, and the rearing and the raising and the teaching your child right from wrong, the morals you instill within them, just not even saying anything, people just watching you, just watching and observing your parental figures does so much to just shape the child. So the fact that you have present parents can do so much, and you want the spouses to be a team, to work together for the best outcomes. So I don't like this. I don't like this. And you can think I'm a prude or traditionalist. I am. And I don't mind I guess people throwing that at me. But Anthony Bryan Logan, he's been saying stuff. He's like, oh, it's just okay to have babies out of wedlock if the father is rich. Like a lot of people are out here kind of shaking their heads like, it's okay if they just load it. There was another tweet that I thought was really good. I'm trying to find it before I let you guys go. Man, I wish we had time today to talk about this Kristen Hawking stuff. I just passed by one of her tweets. It's really sad, I think, her crash out. Sharice Lane said, I keep talking about this because I notice the same grace from conservatives is never shown to Black women who conceive and have children out of wedlock. We get called all types of baby mamas, hoes, and sluts if we have a baby daddy. Even those of us who don't have children out of wedlock still get grouped in with degenerate behavior and then get lectured about how other races of women are better. And someone under it said, I despise playing the race card and saying, but if she was Black, but in this case, it is correct. If she was Black, she would be getting called every name you mentioned and more, and everyone knows it. And then she wrote under it, everyone knows it. I don't want this to be a thing that's true. I'm kind of, I don't know, 80% maybe. Maybe they're right. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it just is the fact that it's Elon, and maybe most of it is grifting. and not wanting to upset that apple cart and like, hey, these people are on the right, but they're black on the right. But I don't know if they were like a big Trumper, maybe they'd still be making kind of excuses or whatever too. So I don't know. Maybe a lot of it is just I have to stick up for them because that's my guy. maybe it's that kind of bias. It doesn't have to be all kind of racial bias, but this isn't a good look. It's not a good look to a lot of people who are on their same side. It's not a good look. So, we just need some moral consistency if you're going to claim to be conservative. Some people are like, I'm not conservative. Like Kimberly Klasick wrote a post this weekend. She's like, stop. I never said I was conservative. I'm a Republican. So if you see me in the club, mind your own business. And I'm like, okay, I think you like a wife with some kids. It's kind of time to leave the club stuff alone. But at least she said what she said. She's not a conservative. She just, I don't know, wants lower taxes or whatever. Okay. But if you're a conservative, you got to think differently about these things and try to remain consistent. Because it's we stand up for the nuclear family. It's a good thing for society. And the last thing I want to say about this subject is children are a gift from God. Not every way that a child comes into this world is obviously moral and something that we should promote, the behavior itself. But the child, they're a gift from God. And we want whatever circumstance that they happen to come into, we want to try to make sure that they flourish in the best way possible. And that's why you want to take proactive measures before they even are conceived to make sure that they're coming into the best situation possible. But human beings mess up. Human beings make mistakes. Sometimes they're not mistakes. Sometimes they're deliberate decisions that are immoral and unjust. But that doesn't mean that the child, is unjust or evil or anything like that. So, I've been in situations where, people have conceived children in ways that I don't approve of. But when the child is around and here, you love that child and you do what's best for the children. Like, you can't take it back, and you certainly don't want to. Even if you have an abortion, you can't take it back. They're alive and you just unalive them. And we don't want to I don't know, shame society to the point where they feel like that is the only option that they have. I think people should feel more shame for going and having an abortion. And it shouldn't be an option, period. But yeah, all the love and luck to these children out there. But adults, we have to make better decisions, not only for ourselves, but for society at large and for whoever we bring into the world. So nuclear family is good. And the very last thing, I'm sorry, I'm doing the preacher closing thing. I just want to point this out before I let you go. The reason why Black Lives Matter started to lose credibility is not because of the riots with them burning down different neighborhoods and buildings and businesses and stuff. It's not the violence, different people being killed at the different rallies and stuff. It's crazy, but they were still going strong. It's not some of the crazy marches and the activists saying crazy stuff, like we can rob Gucci or whatever, that's reparations. That's not the kind of stuff that brought BLM down. The thing that started to bring BLM down and make them lose their credibility is that people started looking in their What We Believe page. It wasn't the data being wrong about like how many times the police actually shoot people. It wasn't that. People start looking at What We Believe page, and they saw stuff about wanting to disrupt the nuclear family. That's what started to bring down BLM. And people on the right, like myself, were screaming it into the atmosphere, hoping other people would listen and pick that up and understand what they were supporting was evil. What they were supporting was like Marxist ideology and etc. blah, blah, blah. And they want the destruction of the nuclear family, which is a very important backbone of our society. They wanted to disrupt it. And, but we had some normies with some platforms like different athletes or whatever, who started to get up and say, I looked at BLM's pages, what we believe, and they are talking about disrupting the nuclear family. Families are good. Fathers are good. We need this sort of stuff. If you are against this stuff, it's against the Black community. Okay? And so BLM started taking that stuff down on their What We Believe page. It's not, last I looked, it wasn't there. It hasn't been there for a long time, unless they changed it recently, but they took that off of their site. You can still find it. You can still find that page where they talked about disrupting the nuclear family. But that's when people start looking at like, oh my gosh, this organization is into some bad things. So, why are people on the right kind of shrugging their shoulders at the nuclear family thing now? That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And you can say conservatives, they're gatekeeping. We're supposed to. We're trying to conserve. We're trying to conserve. That's the point. That's the point. The whole point. Anyway. Thank you guys for watching. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation. blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream, run my side, everything. So you can't support. I appreciate it. You guys can also look at different merch that I have available if you want to support the show. You guys can look at my books, like, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available. You guys can also look at different t-shirts. You guys can look at the GOAT hoodie and GOAT t-shirt. It is President's Day, but the GOAT stands for greatest of all time. I got Washington, Lincoln, Reagan, and Trump on there. So you guys go ahead and check out the different merch that's available on the site. Again, I will be in DC later this week. So tomorrow will be the last day of the week that I'll be able to stream. So I'm sure there'll be interesting things that we can talk about. There's things that I got to talk about today we just don't have time to get to. But God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.